There's something sitting in your kitchen right now that you probably think is helping your health. You may even feel good about buying it. Your doctor might have told you it was a smart choice. But if you're over 60, that familiar food could be quietly working against your brain. And what makes this so unsettling is how innocent it looks. I see this all the time. People come to me genuinely confused. They're doing the things they were told to do. They're choosing fruit instead of dessert. They're staying active. They're walking, socializing, trying to take care of themselves. Yet they keep noticing the same thing. Names are harder to recall. Focus doesn't last as long. They lose their train of thought mid-sentence and can't explain why. They start wondering, what am I doing wrong? The truth is, you're probably not doing anything wrong. What's changed is your body. After 60, your brain doesn't respond to food the same way it did at 40. Foods that once felt harmless can now have a completely different effect on your memory, your focus, and your long-term brain health. And this is where most people get misled, because not all fruits affect the aging brain the same way. Some fruits actually nourish your neurons and help protect your memory. Others quietly spike your blood sugar, increase inflammation, and speed up the very cognitive decline you're trying to avoid. What I'm about to share with you isn't something you'll hear in food commercials or on most nutrition labels. But after working with older adults for many years, I've seen the difference it makes, over and over again. I've watched people who struggled to remember simple conversations regain mental clarity. I've seen others feel more focused and steady just by changing which fruits they eat. And no, this isn't about fear, restriction, or giving up foods you enjoy. It's about understanding which fruits work with your aging brain and which ones quietly work against it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which 5 fruits may be harming your brain right now, and which 5 can actually help protect your memory and independence as you age. And the last fruit I'll share has helped people who believed their memory loss was permanent begin to feel sharp again. If you're over 60 and you care about staying mentally clear, independent, and confident in the years ahead, this information could genuinely change how you think about food and how your brain feels day to day. Building directly on the idea that aging changes how the brain responds to sugar and metabolic stress, the first concrete example the presentation introduces is dangerous fruit number 1, canned fruit cocktail in heavy syrup. This choice is deliberate because it challenges one of the most common assumptions people over 60 still hold, that anything labeled fruit must automatically be good for them. The script carefully reframes this belief, explaining that the problem is not fruit itself, but processing. Canned fruit cocktail is no longer a whole food in the way the brain and body recognize. It has been softened, stripped of structure, and immersed in a sugar-rich liquid that fundamentally changes how it behaves once eaten. What makes this product especially dangerous is its appearance of safety and convenience. For older adults, convenience foods often feel like a necessity. Pre-cut fruit requires no preparation, no peeling, no chewing effort, and no cleanup. It feels gentle, responsible, even doctor-approved. But this is precisely where the deception lies. The syrup it is stored in, often high fructose corn syrup or concentrated fruit juice, delivers a sugar load that reaches the bloodstream rapidly. Unlike fresh fruit, where fiber forms a natural brake on sugar absorption, syrup-soaked fruit enters the system almost like a refined dessert. The script draws a sharp contrast here to make the science intuitive. Fiber is not just about digestion, it is about timing. In whole fruit, fiber slows how quickly sugar is released into the blood, preventing sharp spikes. In canned fruit cocktail, much of that protection is lost. As a result, blood sugar rises quickly, and the pancreas is forced to respond with a large surge of insulin. One spike might not feel dramatic, but when this pattern repeats daily, it begins to reshape metabolism. Crucially, the script extends this explanation beyond the body and into the brain. Insulin is not only a blood sugar hormone, it is also a brain signaling molecule. Neurons rely on insulin signaling to regulate how they access and use energy. Over time, repeated insulin surges can lead to insulin resistance inside the brain itself. When that happens, brain cells struggle to fuel themselves efficiently. This is where symptoms many older adults recognize begin to appear. Mental fog, slower thinking, difficulty recalling names or conversations. and the feeling that focus requires more effort than it used to. Inflammation compounds this process. High sugar intake activates inflammatory pathways that do not resolve overnight. Instead, they accumulate quietly, month after month, year after year. In an aging brain, already dealing with reduced blood flow and slower clearance of waste proteins, this inflammation accelerates cognitive decline. The script makes an important point here. No single fruit cup causes memory loss. It is the pattern, repeated consistently, that does the damage. To ground this science in reality, the presentation introduces a short but powerful case example. A woman replaced cookies with canned fruit cocktail, genuinely believing she had made a healthier choice. On the surface, she had. But her blood sugar became unstable, and her mental clarity worsened. When she removed the syrup-packed fruit and replaced it with fresh berries, the difference appeared within weeks. Her thoughts felt sharper. She stopped losing her train of thought. Others noticed before she did. The takeaway is practical, not extreme. If canned fruit is used, it should be packed in water or its own juice, never heavy syrup. Better still, keep fresh fruit washed, visible, and ready to eat. The message is not fear, but awareness. What looks like fruit is not always fruit in the way your aging brain experiences it. Following naturally from the discussion of syrup-packed canned fruit, the script then broadens the warning to two of the most commonly misunderstood health foods in modern diets: fruit juice and dried fruits. These are introduced not as obvious villains, but as quiet, habitual choices that many older adults consume daily without ever questioning their impact on the brain. The transition is intentional. If canned fruit cocktail is the first example of how processing changes fruit, juice, and dried fruit, show how removing structure and concentrating sugar can be just as damaging, even when no sugar is technically added. The script begins with fruit juice, including freshly squeezed and 100% natural varieties. The core issue is not vitamins, antioxidants, or freshness. It is the absence of fiber. Fiber is what turns fruit into a slow, steady source of energy. When fruit is juiced, that protective matrix is stripped away, leaving behind sugar in liquid form. The presentation uses a simple but powerful comparison. Most people would never sit down and eat 4 oranges in 2 minutes. Yet that is exactly what happens when someone drinks a single glass of orange juice. The body, and especially the aging brain, experiences this as a sudden glucose flood. Without fiber to slow absorption, blood sugar rises rapidly, triggering a strong insulin response. Over time, repeated exposure to these spikes contributes not only to insulin resistance, but also to glycation, a process in which excess sugar binds to proteins and damages tissues. The script makes clear that this damage does not stop at muscles or blood vessels. It extends into the brain. Glycation stiffens blood vessels that supply neurons, impairs cellular communication, and accelerates the wear and tear that leads to cognitive decline. Long-term observational studies are referenced to reinforce the seriousness of this pattern, showing correlations between habitual juice consumption and faster brain shrinkage, particularly in memory-critical regions like the hippocampus. The language used here is deliberately reframing. Juice is not demonized as poison, but redefined as what it effectively becomes after 60 liquid sugar with vitamins. That single shift in perspective is often enough to change behavior because it replaces marketing language with biological reality. From juice, the script transitions seamlessly into dried fruits, dates, raisins, dried mango, and similar snacks. On the surface, these appear wholesome and natural, often marketed as nature's candy. But the dehydration process removes water while leaving sugar intact, creating an extremely concentrated product. The result is a food that delivers far more sugar per bite than its fresh counterpart, with very little volume to trigger fullness. The script emphasizes how easy it is to overeat dried fruit. A handful of raisins can contain as much sugar as a candy bar, yet it rarely feels indulgent or excessive. This constant, low-level sugar intake keeps insulin elevated throughout the day, preventing the brain from ever fully returning to a stable metabolic state. The problem is worsened by the fact that many dried fruits contain sulfites or other preservatives which may interfere with the absorption of key minerals like zinc and magnesium. nutrients the brain relies on for neurotransmitter function and protection against oxidative stress. A brief case example reinforces the message. Someone snacking on dried mango throughout the day believed they were supporting their health, yet unknowingly consumed large amounts of sugar that correlated with worsening memory and focus. Once replaced with whole fruit, often paired with protein or healthy fat, blood sugar stabilized and mental clarity improved. The conclusion of this section is clear and practical. Whole fruit, in its natural form, remains supportive, while fruit stripped of fiber or concentrated through processing becomes a metabolic stressor. The brain after 60 does not need more sugar delivered faster. It needs steadiness, structure, and balance. Building on the earlier warnings about liquid sugar from juice and the concentrated sweetness of dried fruit, the script then moves into its fourth and fifth danger categories, choices that often feel natural or even indulgent in a healthy way, yet quietly place significant stress on the aging brain. This transition is subtle but deliberate. By this point, the viewer understands that sugar delivery speed and metabolic context matter more than whether a food is technically natural. Sweet tropical fruits and processed fruit snacks become the next logical examples of how good intentions can backfire after 60. The discussion begins with very sweet tropical fruits such as mango, pineapple, and papaya. Importantly, the script does not label these fruits as inherently harmful. Instead, it reframes the problem as one of dose and frequency, especially in the context of aging metabolism. Tropical fruits are naturally higher in sugar than berries or apples, and that sugar load becomes more impactful as insulin sensitivity declines with age. Many older adults develop a mild form of insulin resistance long before any diagnosis appears. As a result, the same mango that caused barely a ripple in blood sugar at 40 can trigger a sharp spike at 65. The script explains how these spikes ripple outward. Rapid rises in blood glucose lead to insulin surges, followed by crashes that leave people feeling mentally drained, unfocused, and irritable. Over time, repeated swings disrupt sleep quality, increase inflammation, and impair the brain's ability to form and consolidate new memories. Morning smoothie bowls, often loaded with mango, pineapple, and granola, are highlighted as a particularly problematic pattern. What looks like a nourishing breakfast can function more like dessert, setting the brain up for instability for the rest of the day. The key message here is restraint, not restriction. Tropical fruits can still have a place in a brain-supportive diet, but as occasional pleasures, not daily staples. The script encourages viewers to treat these fruits the way one might treat a sweet treat, enjoyed consciously in smaller portions and ideally paired with protein or healthy fat to slow sugar absorption. This framing helps avoid fear while reinforcing responsibility. From there, the script transitions to the fifth and most misleading category: processed fruit snacks, such as fruit chips, fruit crisps, and baked fruit bites. These products are described as marketing triumphs and biological disasters. Packaging emphasizes images of fresh fruit, words like natural and baked, and comparisons to junk food alternatives. But once examined closely, the reality is starkly different. Many of these products are deep-fried or heavily heated in low-quality vegetable oils, then coated with added sugars to enhance flavor and crunch. This creates what the script calls a double assault on the aging brain. Concentrated sugar spikes insulin and accelerates glycation, while oxidized fats promote inflammation and vascular damage. Together, they strain the blood vessels that nourish the brain and increase neuroinflammatory signaling linked to cognitive decline. The fruit itself becomes almost irrelevant. The processing overrides any protective qualities it once had. A short case example reinforces the point. Someone swapped cookies for fruit chips believing they had made a healthier choice, only to experience worsening energy, focus, and cholesterol markers. Once the chips were removed and replaced with fresh fruit paired with nuts, those issues began to reverse. The lesson lands clearly. When fruit no longer resembles its natural form, it no longer behaves like brain food. The section closes with a unifying insight. Fruit is not automatically protective simply because it started as fruit. Structure, fiber, and minimal processing are what make fruit supportive for the aging brain. Once fruit is fried, sweetened, or engineered into snack form, branding cannot override biology. After clearly identifying which fruit choices can quietly undermine brain health, the script makes a purposeful tonal shift. This transition is essential. Rather than leaving the viewer with restriction and fear, it pivots toward possibility and repair, introducing fruits that do more than avoid harm. These are foods that actively support memory, circulation, and metabolic stability in the aging brain. The message is reassuring. Protection is not complicated, exotic, or inaccessible. It begins with understanding which fruits work with the brain after 60, not against it. The first fruit introduced is blueberries, positioned as the script's top memory fruit. Their power lies in anthocyanins, the pigments responsible for their deep blue color. What makes these compounds remarkable is their ability to cross the blood-brain barrier, a highly selective defense system that blocks most substances from entering brain tissue. Once inside, anthocyanins reduce neuroinflammation, protect neurons from oxidative stress, and improve signaling between brain cells. The script emphasizes that this is not theoretical. Multiple long-term studies associate regular blueberry consumption with improved memory performance and slower rates of cognitive decline. Importantly, the narrative lowers barriers by clarifying that frozen blueberries are just as effective as fresh, sometimes even more so because they are frozen at peak ripeness. This detail reinforces a recurring theme. Brain protection must be practical to be sustainable. From memory, the script naturally transitions to circulation, introducing pomegranate seeds as the next protective fruit. Cognitive health depends heavily on blood flow. The brain, though small in size, consumes a disproportionate amount of oxygen and nutrients. Pomegranate is rich in polyphenols that improve endothelial function, helping blood vessels relax and deliver blood more efficiently to memory-critical regions of the brain. The script is careful to recommend eating the arils rather than drinking juice, reinforcing earlier lessons about fiber and sugar absorption. By preserving the fruit's structure, pomegranate supports circulation without triggering the glucose spikes that undermine brain energy. The narrative frames pomegranate as a quiet endurance enhancer, supporting mental stamina, clarity, and focus, rather than offering a short-lived boost. The third fruit, apples with the skin intact, grounds the message in everyday reality. Apples are described not as a superfood, but as a brain guardian, reliable, accessible, and effective. The skin contains quercetin, a flavonoid shown to protect neurons from inflammation and oxidative damage. Meanwhile, the apple's soluble fiber, pectin, slows sugar absorption and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Here, the script weaves in the gut-brain connection. A healthier gut environment reduces systemic inflammation and supports the production of neurotransmitters involved in mood, focus, and memory. This connection reframes apples from a simple snack into a tool for long-term cognitive resilience. Together, blueberries, pomegranate seeds, and apples represent a coherent strategy rather than isolated tips. They deliver high antioxidant density, vascular support, and stable blood sugar, while preserving fiber and minimizing metabolic stress. The script's deeper insight is that protecting the brain after 60 is not about eliminating pleasure or obsessing over perfection. It is about stacking small advantages, choosing fruits that nourish neurons, stabilize energy, and support circulation day after day. In this way, brain health becomes less about avoiding decline and more about actively shaping the years ahead. Building on the foundation established with blueberries, pomegranate, and apples, the script completes its protective framework by introducing two final fruits that serve very different but equally important roles in brain health after 60: kiwi and avocado. This progression is intentional. After addressing memory, circulation, and metabolic stability, the narrative now turns to oxidative protection and structural support, the final layers needed to preserve cognitive function as the brain ages. Kiwi is presented as an underestimated antioxidant powerhouse. Despite its small size, it delivers exceptionally high levels of vitamin C, often exceeding that of oranges. In the aging brain, vitamin C is no longer just a general immune nutrient. It becomes a frontline defense against oxidative stress. As we age, free radical damage accumulates in brain tissue, disrupting neuron signaling and accelerating cognitive decline. Vitamin C helps neutralize these damaging molecules before they injure neurons or blood vessels. The script also highlights kiwis' supporting nutrients, vitamin E, folate, and potassium, which work together to protect cell membranes, support neurotransmitter production, and maintain the electrical signaling that allows brain cells to communicate efficiently. Importantly, kiwi is framed as a sweet but stable fruit. Unlike many sweet-tasting fruits, it tends to have a lower glycemic impact, meaning it satisfies cravings without triggering sharp blood sugar spikes. This makes kiwi especially valuable for older adults who want sweetness without sacrificing metabolic or cognitive stability. From antioxidant defense, the script then shifts to structural nourishment, introducing avocado as the brain fuel exception. Although botanically a fruit, avocado behaves very differently from typical fruit in the body. It is low in sugar and rich in monounsaturated fats, the same type of fats associated with better cardiovascular and brain health. This matters because the brain is composed largely of fat, and the quality of dietary fat directly influences the integrity of neuron membranes. Healthy membranes allow faster signal transmission, better memory retrieval, and more resilient cognitive performance. Avocado also provides vitamin E and lutein, compounds strongly linked to slower cognitive aging and improved executive function. Lutein, in particular, accumulates in brain tissue and has been associated with better processing speed and attention in older adults. A key practical insight follows. Avocado doesn't just nourish the brain on its own, it protects other foods eaten alongside it. By slowing digestion and glucose absorption, avocado helps blunt blood sugar spikes from sweeter fruits or carbohydrates. In this way, it becomes a strategic anchor food, transforming meals into brain-supportive combinations rather than metabolic stressors. The script closes by widening the lens one final time. Brain health, it reminds viewers, is not determined by a single food or a single decision. It is shaped by daily votes, small, repeated choices that either support or undermine cognition. Every serving of canned fruit and syrup, fruit juice, dried fruit, oversized tropical fruit portions, or processed fruit snacks is a vote toward inflammation and decline. Every choice of blueberries, pomegranate seeds, apples with skin, kiwi, or avocado is a vote for memory, independence, and mental clarity. The final message is deeply empowering. Cognitive decline is not an unavoidable sentence handed down by age. It is, to a meaningful degree, responsive to awareness and consistency. By replacing hidden sugar traps with genuinely protective fruits, viewers are not just eating differently, they are actively shaping the future of their minds, one deliberate choice at a time. Thank you for spending your time with this video. Your presence means so much. Wishing you strength, health, and clarity on your wellness journey. Stay inspired, stay informed, and take care.